Welcome to Not Another Greek History Podcast, the podcast that aims to be exactly what it says. I'm your host, Philip Dovlepis, and together we'll discover the not so frequently told stories of Greece's history that will change the way you view things forever. Welcome everyone to the series Macedonian Legends. We'll be exploring the ancient kingdom of Macedonia and the powerful figures that changed the course of history. From the rise of the empire under King Philip II and Alexander the Great, to the last Greek queen ever, Cleopatra, the story of Macedonia is one of ambition, conquest, and genius. The rise of Macedonia and King Philip II. Macedonia, located in the northern part of Greece, both modern and ancient, wasn't always the dominant power that we know today. Wait. Why are you doing an episode about Macedonians? Isn't this about Greek history? Oh god, are we doing this already? Okay. Macedonia is part of Greece. It has always been part of Greece. Long story short, we never lost any of it. It never got divided. So even though nowadays there's a country that calls itself North Macedonia, it's an utterly absurd thing. But I will talk about this in more depth when I do the episodes about Alexander the Great, the greatest Greek of all times, who of course was Macedonian. Are we good? Can I go on now? Thank you. During the early Persian invasion in Greece, Macedonia fell under their control since 512 and even fought against other Greeks. Boo! Shame on them. It was liberated in 479 when the joined Greek forces defeated the Persians at the Battle of Plataea, which is near Athens. If you would like to find this on your phones, on your maps, so that you actually have an idea of what we're talking about, it's a good idea, I think, as we're doing this podcast for you to maybe even have your maps as well on your phone and check where these locations are. So you can look, in this case, for something that is called Platees. That's Platees. Over the next century, Macedonia is just a kingdom overshadowed by its more powerful neighbors from southern Greece: Athens, Sparta, and Thebes in English. Enter King Philip II, a shrewd and ambitious ruler who would transform Macedonia into the dominant military force in Greece. Philip was born in 382, always BC. During his 4 to 6 years, he married 7 women. Now that's what I call setting the bar really high. Philip's brilliance lay in his ability to unite the fractured Greek city-states under his rule, but not through force alone. He also used diplomacy, alliances, and military innovation. He revolutionized military tactics by introducing the Macedonian phalanx. That was a tightly packed formation that used long spears that we call sarissa. Sarissas in English, plural. It has a lot of S's, which is kind of difficult for me. Those measured up to 18 feet in length. This phalanx formation, with overlapping spears, could penetrate enemy lines from a distance. This gave Philip a significant advantage over traditional hoplite armies of southern Greece. Hoplite from the word hoplo, which means weapon. So that means the soldiers bearing just a weapon, because they used shorter spears and fought in less flexible formations. Roughly at the age of 22, his brother is killed and Philip takes the throne. By the time Philip becomes king in 359 BC, Macedonia is in deep problems. He quickly restores stability. He expands Macedonia's borders and strategically marries many women from other royal families to cement his alliances. He was not just a playboy. There's a city named after him in northern Greece called Philippi, which is like saying Philip in plural. Philippos is the name in Greek. Philippi is like saying Philips. Philippi is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, if that makes any difference, if it matters at all. It wasn't founded by him, though. It was renamed in 356. That is the year that Alexander was born. It's located near some really valuable gold mines. And that gives you an idea about how Philip and Alexander got a lot of power because they had this wealth in their hands. Flash forward 3 centuries later, after the assassination of the Roman Julius Caesar in 44 BC. And what is the connection now? Because he was assassinated in Rome. His heirs, Mark Antony and Octavian, are fighting his assassins Brutus and Cassius. And that is happening at the Battle of Philippi. Those Romans just couldn't not solve their issues in Greece. By the way, if you watch a documentary or something, or if you watch a movie where they mention that place, you might hear the version Philippi. That is because a lot of the E sounds that we have in Greek, in English, eventually they became an I sound. So that is also the same, for example, when we say Delphi, and in English you might say Delphi, or you might even say Delphi. Delphi, I always say that, it really hurts my ears. If you have to say one, at least say Delphi, not Delphi. Almost a century later, after this whole thing with the Romans, Paul the Apostle visits Philippi around 50 AD and establishes the first Christian community in Europe.
Εξομολογήστε το Κύριο ότι αγαθός, αλληλούια.
He would visit the city again in the future and he would write the epistle to the Philippians. And from this, we're going to read something really short. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. This is like he's talking to those kings of antiquity. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others. Brilliant. Another city renamed after Philip is Philippopolis. In this case, it has the word polis in it, like Acropolis. So it means the city of Philip. That one is not in Greece, though. It's situated in modern day Bulgaria, and it's known today as Plovdiv. Whenever I say modern day something, it means that we cannot use that country's name for things happening in antiquity. That means Bulgaria cannot be used when we talk about antiquity, or Turkey, for example, cannot be used about antiquity. During the siege of Methoni, which is a city in northern Greece, in Macedonia, Philip was struck in the eye by an arrow. The arrow reportedly had an inscription on it saying, "To Philip's right eye." The injury left Philip permanently disfigured, and he lost vision in that eye. His ultimate ambition was to unify Greece under his banner. But how did we even get to that? Something which is usually overlooked is the Pan-Hellenic idea of Isocrates, which you probably never heard of. Pan-Hellenic from the words pan and Hellenic. Pan meaning everything, everyone, and Hellenic is actually a version of the word Greek that we use. Helleniko, Hellenic. So for all the Greeks, that was a vision of unity promoted by the Athenian orator Isocrates, who lived in 436. He was born in 436 and died in 338. If you remove the I from the name Isocrates, you actually get Socrates. That's Socrates. So whenever you hear the word kratis in a name like Socrates, Isocrates, it means power. Kratos is also the name of a character in the video game series God of War. And from that word, from the word Kratos, we also get the word Demokratia. Demokratia is democracy. It doesn't just sound like kratis, like Socrates. It might also sound like krasi, as in the word democracy, aristocracy, meritocracy, and so on. This Isocrates, that orator that I told you about, lived almost up to 100 years old. So that answers the question, how long did people live in antiquity? Some people lived that long. He believed that the constant wars among Greek city states weakened them, it makes sense, and left them vulnerable to threats such as Persia. He was damn right. So, what are the key elements of this Pan Hellenic idea? Number one, Isocrates argued that all Greeks shared a common language, which of course they did, religion, they did, heritage, they did, and that would be the foundation of their unity. He was right. He believed that civil wars, such as the Peloponnesian War, which means between the Athenians and the Spartans, were disastrous. They were, and they undermined Greece's strength. Then, Isocrates proposed that unity could be achieved under the leadership of a single powerful ruler or state. Initially, he was thinking about Athens or Sparta, but they just fought against each other all the time. So later, he saw Philip II of Macedonia as the ideal candidate. Isocrates envisioned a Pan-Hellenic crusade against Persia, which of course was a common enemy for all the Greeks. This campaign would not only avenge the earlier Persian invasions in Greece, but it would also serve as a unifying project for the Greek world. Isocrates also emphasized the cultural superiority of the Greeks over the non-Greeks, whom the Greeks, keep in mind, called barbarians. Anyone who was not Greek was a barbarian. He believed that uniting under a shared Greek identity would reinforce their dominance. So, what was the impact of his idea? While the ideas of Isocrates did not achieve any immediate success during his lifetime, he was born in 436, which means actually very close to the Peloponnesian War. Nevertheless, they influenced the policies of Philip and Alexander the Great. So his ideas were a precursor to Alexander's empire. Philip managed to gain control at the Battle of Chaeronea in 338 BC, the year that Isocrates died. Chaeronea is located near Thebes on the way to Delphi, so a couple of hours from Athens. At the battle, Philip is fighting an alliance of southern city-states, primarily Athens and Thebes. The Macedonian army at Chaeronea had over 30,000 soldiers, and it was supposed to be superior to other Greek armies. The alliance had almost 35,000 soldiers, so there were more. Philip nevertheless crushed the alliance. Even the sacred band of Thebes, an elite unit of hoplites, was nearly annihilated during the battle. Very few of them survived. Philip's victory at Chaeronea was a turning point, and is considered to be one of the most significant ancient battles. You see, there was a time when he was very capable, and he hadn't always been this man who's falling to pieces that we see in the 2004 film. Although Val Kilmer in that movie did a great job portraying that frail character. Part of the army was even led by Alexander at the age of 18. This is where he really proved his competence for the first time. At that age, by the way, he was really worried that his father would leave nothing for him to do. That's what a teenager was worried about in antiquity. Near the battlefield, there is a museum and also a big statue of a lion marking the mass grave of the defeated soldiers. The statue is 5.5 meters tall, that's 18 feet, plus a 3-meter pedestal, that's almost 10 feet. Philip was then able to establish the League of Corinth in 337. League of Corinth. That same year, he also put his wife, Olympias, aside and married a woman called Cleopatra. We didn't even mention Olympias practically, and she's already put aside. With the League of Corinth, Philip effectively unites most of the city-states, except Sparta, under his rule. Let me tell you a relevant story that I really, really love. Even though Sparta's influence had declined by the time of Philip, for them, submission was something unheard of. So Philip sent a message to Sparta warning them, if I invade Laconia is the region around Sparta, I will raise Sparta to the ground. The Spartans famously replied with a single word, if. It's a great story. Like, if I invade, I will destroy you. And they said, if. They even dared him, which is practically what they told the Persians as well. When the Persians asked for everything to be surrendered to them, the Spartans said, Molon lave, come and get it. The League of Corinth allowed Philip to prepare for his campaign against Persia. But before he could fulfill his grand plan, fate intervened. In 336, Philip was attending a grand celebration for the wedding of his daughter Cleopatra at Aie. Cleopatra was getting married to King Alexander the First. That's the king of Epirus, which is a nearby kingdom. That's in western Greece, but it's right next to Macedonia, so northwest. Alexander the First was her uncle, the brother of her mother, Olympias. That means that at the same time, there was an Alexander First and an Alexander Third, but in different kingdoms. The first was in Epirus, and the third was in Macedonia. That is because the name Alexander was common both for the kingdoms of Epirus and Macedonia. Therefore, there were multiple kings called Alexander the First, Alexander the Second, the Third, and so on. So when we see Alexander the Second, for instance, the kingdom needs to be mentioned so that you know where he was. In the same way that there were like 8 kings called Henry or Edward in England. Back to the wedding in 336. The ancient writer Diodorus says, the theater was full when Philip entered wearing a white cloak. His bodyguards had been ordered to accompany him at a distance. He wanted to show everyone that he was protected by the common goodwill of the Greeks and did not need any other protection. Pausanias, seeing that the king was alone, ran up to him and striking him straight through the ribs, left him dead on the ground. Philip's blood stained the orchestra of the theater. The leader of all of Greece had just been assassinated by one of his bodyguards. Pausanias stabbed Philip reportedly due to a personal grievance. Nevertheless, there is speculation that maybe Philip's wife Olympias or even Alexander were involved in his death, or maybe the Persians. The Oliver Stone movie that was released in 2004 clearly suggests that Philip had raped Pausanias and that Olympias was also involved. It doesn't mention the Persians, making it more personal. In 1977, archaeologists found a tomb containing a box with the remains of a man that had been cremated. That is the tomb of Philip in Vergina. Vergina. That's like writing virgin, but with E in the beginning and an A in the end. Vergina. That is, of course, in northern Greece, in Macedonia. That is an absolute must-see if you come to Greece. They found golden wreaths of impeccable craftsmanship, his armor, shields, swords, and much, much more. They also found another similar box containing the remnants of a young woman. That is believed to have been the 6th out of the 7 wives of Philip. Her name was Meda, and she was from Thrace. Thrace is on the right side of Macedonia, so practically if you take a look at the map, it borders with Turkey on the right and Bulgaria in the north. Keep in mind, if you ever go to Bulgaria, that the Bulgarians who came to the area much, much, much later, in the years AD, not even in antiquity, they have no connection to the ancient Thracians. Okay, just so you know, because they are trying to make a connection in Bulgaria nowadays with the ancient Thracian people, and that is not true. Meda had never had a child with Philip. According, though, to her tribe's custom, she had to accompany her dead husband. So Meda, only about 20 years old, committed suicide. And maybe for that dedication that she showed, she was really honored with precious artifacts. The worth of Philip's golden box alone is estimated to be about 700,000 euros. A sun or star with 16 triangular rays was depicted on his box. That is the main symbol of Macedonia. That symbol also became a matter of dispute between Greece and another country, but we'll get into that in more details in a different episode. Keep in mind that I'm doing a lot of episodes, and I will do, and you would have to listen to all of them to actually make sense out of this whole thing. Philip was planning his campaign against Persia at that moment, so there had not been any preparations for his death. All the objects that were found in the tomb were used in real life. And that's really interesting. Like the things that they were using in the palace for him, that he was using, they put them in the grave with him. Philip's assassination marked a turning point, as you can imagine, with his son swiftly taking the throne. What we see in the movies, for example, is Philip is assassinated, and at the same time, other people are telling Alexander, you have to declare now that you're the next king. Philip was going to be overshadowed almost completely by Alexander, of course, who is coming up. But before we talk about Alexander, next we'll be talking about Olympias, who lived in 375 to 316 BC. That is the mother of Alexander the Great and the fourth wife of Philip II. Olympias was known for her fierce, determined personality and her dedication to her son's destiny. Originally from Epirus in western Greece, her family claimed descent from the hero Achilles, adding to her aura of nobility and legitimacy. That's why in the 2004 movie Alexander, Angelina Jolie does some weird accent to show that she was from a different part of Greece.
Damn your sorceress soul!
Your soul is mine, Alexander.
No!
I am sure 100% that this is not what people from Epirus sounded like back then or nowadays. But anyway, I kind of get, let's say, the idea of doing a different accent to show that she was not a local Macedonian. Nevertheless, okay, it's not a choice, an artistic choice that we really valued, that we really appreciated in Greece. Unfortunately, otherwise, I think her performance in Alexander really added something to the movie. By the way, Angelina Jolie portrayed another Greek 20 years later, this year, because I'm recording this in late December of 2024. She portrayed the opera singer Maria Callas, Maria Kalogeropoulou. That was her full surname, Kalogeropoulou. Unlike with her performance in Alexander, where she was actually nominated for what is it, Golden Raspberry? Yes, I'm thinking about blueberries. No, she will be nominated, and she will probably win. And we'll see. This is only it's coming up in a few months. She will probably win the Oscar for this performance. Olympias herself claimed direct descent from Helen of Sparta, the one that is wrongfully known in English as Helen of Troy. Olympias married Philip II as part of a political alliance between Macedonia and Epirus. Together they had two children, Alexander, the future Alexander the Great, they just called him Alexander back then, and also Cleopatra, Cleopatra of Macedonia. And now we can see that Cleopatra was a very common name in Greece, and it's definitely not Egyptian. And I think you can tell why I'm saying that. The very last person that we're going to be talking about in this whole series about the famous Macedonians is, of course, Cleopatra. So stay tuned for that one. The original name of Olympias was actually Polyxene, then Myrtali, and then Olympias. It was the third name. And she took that name to commemorate Philip's victory, her husband's victory at the Olympic Games of 356 BC. and that is, of course, the year when Alexander the Great was born. Olympias was a deeply religious woman and a devotee of the god Dionysus. She often participated in ecstatic and mystical rites that were associated with the god of wine. So some ancient sources practically suggest that her religious practices were intense and that they involved rituals that seemed exotic, unsettling to some Macedonians, or that she even slept with snakes. To be honest, though, sleeping with snakes was a thing in Greece, in healing places, though. Her devotion to the cult of Dionysus gave her a reputation for mysticism and possibly added to rumors that Alexander was of divine origin. Legend says that she even claimed that he was the son of Zeus and not of Philip. Some 20 years after she married Philip, Philip then married another woman. We said that he married 7 women. In Oliver Stone's film, we have a portrayal of Olympias as a mystical figure and kind of manipulative. She's shown as jealous, and of course, she doesn't seem to get along with Philip's other wives, which makes perfect sense. Of course, who would blame her? Come on. Like, you're one of the 7. So while at his daughter's wedding, as we said, Philip is murdered, an assassination that might have been devised by Olympias herself. This is, I think, more or less a rumor, though. So after Philip's assassination in 336, Olympias played a significant role in consolidating the power for Alexander, who was her only son. She ruthlessly eliminated political rivals to secure Alexander's possession, including Philip's last wife, Cleopatra Evridiki, Cleopatra Eurydice, and her young daughter. All this makes a lot of sense. Never think they were cruel, they were ruthless, and all these things. It was do or die. There was no such thing as playing nice. She had great influence, and she often clashed with really powerful figures like Antipater, Antipatros, who was even left in charge of Macedonia when Alexander was away in his Persian campaign. Her ambition and authority made her both respected and feared. So following Alexander's death in 323 BC, Olympias tried to maintain control over Macedonia and protect her grandson, Alexander IV. She's always looking after her family, as you can see. In 317, she briefly took control of Macedonia, but her efforts ultimately led to her own downfall. She was captured by Cassander, who ordered her execution, but the soldiers refused to harm Alexander the Great's mother. This is really, really impressive. Ultimately, the families of her several victims stoned her to death with Cassander's approval. Her death marked the end of her very dramatic and impactful life. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share. Until next time, this is Onoufiros Dovletis signing off from Not Another Greek History Podcast.